In the back. Yep. There you go. Everybody's good. Everybody has a camera on looking at the panel. We are currently at 357 people. That's good. When Michael started talking, we had 308, so we're rising. Like I said, for the people in the panel, we're going to try to aim for 2,000 at the end of the day. So we're on the roll. We're at 357. Okay, panel discussion. Are you ready, my dear panel members? I see some nodding heads. I see some thumbs up. Let me introduce you real quick. We're going to have a panel discussion, and it's called Post-Corona Technology Trends. The title itself says this. We're going to talk about not just what is happening in the world, but what are the opportunities in the world? How are we coping with new customer experience? How are we coping with the future? How the world, this is digital. We're doing this in a whole different way. So what is coming up? What is happening? What are companies doing? Are budgets being cut? Are we still human, or are we turning into the screens and the robots that we are using more and more and more and creating it? And I'm not going to talk about it. I invited 4 experts on the matters who have different areas, from top leadership to being the consultants in technology to going all over the place. You know, they know their stuff. I see them looking at me like, no, we don't. But they're ready for it. Let me introduce them. Here we go. We have Jack Ramsey. Do I pronounce it right?
You do.
Yes. All right. Jack Ramsey, he's a senior managing director for Accenture Tech and Industry XO. I think that's something like Sector 51 of Area 51, Industry XO. Working with intelligent platforms, looking at the newest products. You're one of the fastest growing, not departments is not the right word, but the fastest growing sector within Accenture, really looking at the solutions for a connected world, looking at mobility. And you love racing cars, and you love hiking. And the cool thing is you have 4 children. You're checking. Do I still have 4 children? Do I still have 4 children? And it was funny on the website. It says ranging from 17 years old to 22 years old. You know, you have a lot of kids when they don't just say they're this old. No, there's a range of ages. Then you know you officially have a lot of children. But that's great. Welcome to the panel, Jack. Next up, we have Max Furmanov, a known face to the Open Slava. Can I hear you?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, there you go. Nice. I'm loving the virtual background of Brooklyn in the back. It's awesome.
Done by in-house marketing team.
There you go. There you go. The budgets are crazy, probably. We have Max Furmanov. You're the global managing director of Accenture, leading the Accenture enterprise transformation. You're into tech strategy, pivoting businesses. You're actually, let's sum it up, as a thought leader within the industry, if I can say that. And in my personal opinion, you're a great speaker. I can say that because I've seen you before. Then we have, welcome to the panel, Peter Scotney. I hope I pronounced that right.
Correct, yeah. Thank you.
There you go. I'm loving the background, the Northern Light. Not a lot of people get to see it, but you have it constantly in your background, so that's great.
I'm sorry about that. I was just asked by the organizer to set it properly because of the windows behind me. My mistake. Wrong house. I need to explain to my wife.
But I think it's great, and it's a Northern Light. It could also be like a pirate ship or something. So, but the Northern Light is pretty good. You're the consultant. You're also Accenture, and for me, what stood out, you're the man who built his first computer in the late 70s.
Correct, yeah.
There you go. We're talking about Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, but we're talking about Peter Scotney building the first computers here.
Yeah,
35.
Made mistake to try to sell it.
You made the mistake to sell it.
Not to sell it.
Not to sell. Oh yeah, there you go. I wanted to ask, what is it worth now? You have 35 years experience, so that's amazing. Hopefully it doesn't sound wrong, but you have more experience than I'm old, so you probably definitely know what you're talking about. I don't want to make you feel old. 35 years experience, and you also are helping the Slovak government in the COVID challenges, and in general you're helping others succeed. That is what I remembered from your intro. So welcome to the panel. And then one more. Here I go. Where's my my paper thingy here? And then we have Bettina, and Bettina is from Bulgaria. Do I see you? Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Loud and clear. You're from.
I really want you to try out on my last name.
Okay, here we go. I don't think it's that hard. Bettina Rotermund.
Hey, very good.
It's a German name, right?
Yeah, it is.
Ja, I can do that. Bettina Rotermund. Das ist aber gar
Very
kein Problem.
good.
In Belgien sprechen wir Deutsch und Niederländisch. And for the people
Cool.
not listening are like, what the hell is going on? So are there any, I'm looking at the chat, are there any German people? Let us know and cheer for Bettina. It's not a competition, it's a panel discussion. So welcome, you're the head of comms sales support at Siemens Advanta. You're the first, but not the last woman on the 3 days event. So welcome, and we're also gonna see you again later on for the Siemens story. So looking forward to that. You're future-proof, you're very human-focused, which I also think from my perspective is really important to keep the tech also very human and take what's for the end user. And yeah, thank you very much for being here and also loving the background. You know, you have an astronaut back there. Yeah, okay. Welcome to the panel.
Several.
It's a full house.
It's a full house.
It's a full house. Okay, you have to excuse me here because I threw my questions a bit all over the place. That is my mistake. There you go. Here they are. Are you ready for the panel discussion?
Absolutely.
Are you pumped? You probably missed the intro, but I asked people all around the world looking like how pumped you are. We had 9s, we had 8s, we had 10s, we had 9.99. So everybody's super pumped. So I hope you have the same energy as the people that are watching right now. Okay, here we go. Like I said, I want to keep it spontaneous. You can jump in, you can disagree, you don't always have to look at me for appointing someone. Let's just have a normal discussion, and I'm probably going to jump in if we're expanding a bit too much or I want to move, or we have questions from people in the chat, because you can also, and I'm pointing there because my question's over there, you can also join in the conversation. If you're watching this, ask us a question, I'll ask them for you to the panel. All right, maybe to start it off easy, like who is going to start? Maybe I'll start with Max, because I introduced you a bit of the thought leader, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, sure.
All right, here we go. And the rest can jump in. For me, first question, let's keep it general. There's this running, it's not really a joke, but they say that the World Health Organization is leading digital transformation, is pushing digital transformation faster than ever before. Because in the beginning, companies were a bit like, should we do it? Should we not do it? Should we spend money in it? That's what they're saying. But if you look at this big shift, everybody says what's happening right now is causing this big digital shift faster than ever. Companies, governments, they're all moving. And my question is it just boardroom marketing? I mean, that everybody's saying it, but do you see it actually happening, this digital shift? Yes or no? And if yes, what are you seeing? And if no, why is everybody frozen?
Yeah, so I think, first of all, we totally agree, right? We think that the shift is real. We don't just think it's boardroom talk. And we think that COVID has accelerated and precipitated it in many ways. So I saw a meme similar to the joke you just made around, who's driving your digital transformation? It was a multiple choice question. Is it the CIO, the CEO, or the WHO that's driving your digital transformation? And the answer is WHO. What we've seen, so like you said when you introduced me, I run our enterprise transformation practice, and it's a practice where we're helping our clients transform to the cloud, transform to a more modern, modularized technology ecosystem, et cetera. And what we've seen with COVID is that the demand on technology, on systems, the capacity required to support, technology has drastically changed for many companies. If you think about travel companies, for example, you think about hotels, you think about, airlines, their demand on systems has fallen off a cliff, right? In some cases, their revenue was down 90, 95%. And, there's an associated drop in IT needs, right? But the variability and the cost of IT cannot decrease that much, right? Because they have static systems that need to be maintained and you can't just take them offline. Similarly, you have other companies, like, for example, in North America, we've seen a lot of insurance companies, a lot of state and federal agencies that are providing unemployment insurance companies that are providing, dependent care benefits. They've seen a surge in demand, right? And as we've seen that, again, their IT systems cannot support that. They cannot be variabilized to support those shifts in demand. And so they've in many cases come to us asking, can you help us? Not in the course of weeks and months to transform, but right now we need to transform this week, right? We need to issue unemployment benefits. We need to issue dependent care benefits. We need to reduce our IT infrastructure costs because our revenue's fallen down 90%, right? So we think that this is very real and very acute. And we've seen our clients come to us, asking for help immediately. But also for many of them, it actually made them realize that they need to invest in the longer term transformation to be more adaptable, more agile, and more ready for the next, kind of crisis.
All right. And if I look at the rest of the panel, do you agree? Is it the same what you're seeing? Do you have different experiences? I see Bettina nodding.
Yeah, we see exactly the same story. Though what we see also is it's like people are not hopping directly into the next big step for the future, because a lot of companies that are addressing us, they are really, busy with securing the here and now. And as Max already said, their revenues have dropped dramatically. So especially in Europe, a lot of companies are using their kind of fluent money to secure the here and now with short labor, etc. pp. But definitely, like all of them that we are talking to, they come to us and ask for, okay, what can I do to secure my people and my revenues and my business? And a lot of things that we have talked about previously, like remote operations or safe worker, that absolutely became accelerated during the crisis, because people now see it firsthand. It's like really seeing is believing. Mm-hmm. Previously were nice talks about it and kind of pre-educating the customer. Now it became real, and people are definitely thrilled to learn more about that and tap into the new future.
All right. Anything to add from the other two gentlemen?
I think if I was to add a comment from what I've seen, the one thing that's been, if we talk about how digital technologies and new ways of connecting can help, the sheer ability that a device like this gives you to really help protect you in this environment has been confronted with a lot of people not having sufficient trust in the governments and what will happen with the data. That was a big learning for me, because I personally would be prepared to have technology help me stay safe in such a crisis. But it's been all over the world a problem where people don't want to share their data. Yeah. And that is an interesting learning for me, because the technology could be doing much more to help us right now if the trust existed, but it's not there. And I think there's a lesson for governments there about it. How do we have to rebuild that trust with the citizens?
All right, cool, interesting. Peter, any thought on that?
Yeah, I agree with what Jack was saying. I think what we see is, I call it the first wave, because this is the kind of quick fix solution to everything, with probably many compromises, because people are still not sure if this is like for real or this will last forever. Mm-hmm. So we see many solutions in place which are like really deployed extremely quickly in a matter of days. It's number of compromises, but what goes against this is all the like cybersecurity, data privacy issues, and the problems that people never like faced before, like the famous like Bluetooth tracking, like what is happening in the Europe with COVID. With like we see that there is no clear instructions how the hell to do it privately, and at the same time we have like this information war which is going on globally. So I think what is happening, we have on one hand like really accelerated moving to real digital transformation. At the same time, my concern is that we see the acceleration of all the conspiracy theories and hoax. So it's like people are not able to adapt as quickly to technology as the companies are able to adapt.
All right. So I'm hearing, if to sum it up, I'm hearing, yes, you all agree on there is this digital shift that has been pushed forward for what the recent happening. So that's great. Everybody was preaching digital transformation. Now, like Bettina said, now we see it. Now we have to do it. And we go for it. And if I hear Max, they're saying like, yes, a lot of industries are being forced to invest in it to go quicker. I hear what Jack's saying, but there's also trust on the customer or the employee, whoever is using the technology side. Do I want to share my data? Do I want to move quicker? And like Peter said, it's coming upon us. But if you then look at, Max, you gave the example of the hotel industry. If we then look at the trust, if we look at the technology, if we look at people actually investing in the companies, who's doing it right? Who's like currently, according to you, the example, not because they have to, but because they're really rocking it and they're doing it right for their customers, for their employees, for their target. Who is, in your light, the best practices right now?
I mean, I think, there's to Pierre's point, there's the short-term acute things you've got to go and do. Like, if you're going to operate effectively, if you're going to host a conference effectively like this, you need to get Zoom working, right? And you need to get it working at a scale, that works for your organization. And you're going to do that very quickly, right? If you've got to issue insurance claims, if you've got to, bring down certain systems so you can save costs, like those are the things you got to do right away. But I also think that there's the long term, right? And organizations that are ultimately going to be successful are looking at the long term now, and they're saying, okay, so I've stood up my Zoom, I've variabilized my cost to the extent possible and what I could do in weeks. But am I thinking about what a year from now looks like? Am I thinking about how to invest in the future in the right way, with security in mind, with trust in mind, right? So that I'm successful a year from now. And I'll tell you a funny anecdote. One of my clients is actually a large hotel chain. I won't mention their name, but I was working for their chief commercial officer, who was in charge of their new businesses. And we started on a strategic initiative to transform their organization to pivot to where their business wanted to head. And we started this initiative 2 or 3 months before COVID hit. And I spoke to her for the first time 2 or 3 weeks after the whole COVID crisis. And of course, hotel company, like every hotel company in the world, lost 90 or 95% of their revenue. To be honest with you, I was terrified to get on the phone with her, because I thought, she was going to say to me, what is she going to say, right? Their revenue's down 90%. They're going to cancel everything they're doing. They're going to shelve everything until demand comes back. And so I was expecting a very hard conversation. And she got on the phone with me, and the first thing she said was, oh man, do I wish we started this work a year ago or 2 years ago, so we were further down the path of our transformation, because I would have been so much more prepared now for this crisis than I am. And so she wanted to double down on what we were doing. She wanted to accelerate. She wanted to ask all the questions. How do I do this right? Around data and privacy, and what are the questions I should be asking, and how do I accelerate my transformation so that my long term, not just my acute issues, are addressed, but in the long term, I set up a successful business.
Okay, nice, interesting. Yeah, even in the revenue loss, saying we'll double down on this and we have to go even further. Are the rest of the panel, you seeing the same thing? Are you seeing best practices and things that we can learn from, or?
Well, I'm not so sure about best practices, but definitely this is this ambidexterity that you need to master as a CEO of a company, to have one hand in the here and now and the other hand in the future, as Peter F. Drucker would say. Yeah. So definitely we see a shift also of learning from the here and now. So I have to shut down my hotel, as Max reports, or I have to shut down my factory because the factory workers stand too close to each other. So what are potential solutions for that? Being it unmanned automated vehicles that are driving back and forth in my factory, so I do not need to have that much people. Can I use drones or robots that do a lot of this work? So the here and now and the problems that we need to solve. Yeah, you cannot solve with the solutions from the past. You really need to think ahead, and you really need to vision the future and then work backwards. So what do we need to do in order to only get there, and how would it look like, and what can we apply as of today? So definitely we see a lot of customers that also look into bringing people safely back to work. So how would that work? And we're having an app for that called Comfi that works based on cloud and IoT technology that has a lot of advantages, not only keeping people safe, but also, how do you manage your building? How do you grow into a smart building of the future? Definitely that is something that you need to start today in order to build up a successful future. And that is the risk, to really only stay here and being paralyzed and work on the crisis in the here and now and forget about building the future. Yeah. As hard as it is this ambidexterity that you really need to master. Otherwise, you will be falling behind more and more.
All right. Do you agree, Jack?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for a number of our clients, we saw a lot of them didn't really have the resilience in their business, the standard processes that they had to be able to continue to work as they had before. I live in Germany, and actually it became a major problem, not so much with the virus itself, but the supply chains being very significantly disrupted, and people recognized just how fragile things like that were. So we see a lot of clients focusing on those topics as well. How can we be more ready for the next time something like this happens? It was a big impact for us. We had to suddenly get 500,000 people working from home, because we are contracted to provide services to our clients to keep their businesses running. Yep. And that in itself also highlighted some challenges. I mean, the Indian market ran out of laptops at one point because companies like us were suddenly buying hundreds of thousands of laptops to get people to work from home. So
exactly. Anything
testing resilience.
Yeah, and I wanted to zoom a bit on that, together with the trust that you mentioned before, together with what Max said on the client doubling down. Bettina said not necessarily best practices, but people need to move forward. It's not just in COVID times, just in general, be ready for the future. But let's imagine that I'm a company that is having revenue problems, or that I'm not a big company. And what would your advice be? Like, if you have to double down on digital, and that's what you're all saying, like move future, it's not easy, but do something. What would be the focus points for you right now, or your advice for my companies? Or what should I be doing right now, investing in? Which technology to follow? What would be my priority if I don't have all that fun? You can jump in whenever you want.
Well, I can give you an example, because I was in a phone call earlier today. I'm involved in a startup, and the product we were making was a product for people's safety, a personal device you carry. You click a button, and it alerts people that you need help. And of course, we're a startup, so cash is a challenge. Yeah. And we ordered 100,000 of these units, and then all of a sudden, one of the clients just said, "No, we're not interested anymore." So I was talking to the CEO this morning. He was explaining to me that cruise ships are very interested in using such a device for social distancing because of this trust point I mentioned with the data. Because what they don't mind is if everybody's got one of these devices and it tracks who has been within 1.5 meters of who. And if somebody gets sick, they've got the ID of the device. So we're actually now selling a totally different product than we envisaged 6 months ago, and the demand is actually quite high. Yeah. Because the people will be interested in this kind of closed user group. So coming back to what Bettina was saying, you've got to be able to change quickly. And you might find that suddenly the product that you wanted to sell isn't really as attractive, given the changes on what people are suddenly looking for. So that ability to be entrepreneurial and creative at speed is essential right now, because some companies will be out of business in 6 weeks if their cash flow is disrupted.
Yeah, there you go. I think that's and not because you're the panel. I think that's really good advice also for the people watching in Open Slava. If I know the audience is a bit. So what you're actually saying is, you have your current product or services, everything's changed, you need to digitalize, be ready for the future, but it might not be the thing that you're selling right now, and changes for the future. And I think if you look at the cruise ships, what you said, I'm looking back at what Michael said before this panel. He was talking, I don't know if you saw the talk, but he was talking about the cruise ships having the bracelet that you could order a Mai Tai. So what you're actually saying is, if you're selling the Mai Tai bracelet, you're probably going to go bankrupt. But if you can change the Mai Tai bracelet like you were doing with the startup, and you can use it for social distancing, then you have your product and you're future proof. So that's relook at your business and just say, oh my God, what's going on? And I hear Bettina saying, you want to add something?
Yeah, just to build up on what Jack said. So you really need to be agile, and you really need to look into, are there opportunities in the here and now that you really can hop on and just, change a little bit to really, use what is on your table right now. And I think like one of the biggest myths about new technologies, especially about digital transformation and IoT, industrial IoT, is you need to have this super mega strategy for the rest of your life, and you're going to invest like 500 million euro, and if this fails, you're done. So it's quite the opposite. You really need to be agile, and you really need to look into, so what is your North Star? Why would you do that? What do you want to achieve? And then it's all about start small, scale fast. Yeah, it's usually IoT. You do not, plug in sensors to all of your devices in one factory, and you end up with 20,000 sensors littering around. You would look for this one use case that is really good for value creation and value capturing. And can you do services or an app around that to even accelerate further? And once this proof of concept is successful, and once you implemented that into your IT legacy system, which by the way is the most funny part of all, and then you see that this works, you move forward. So I'd really like to encourage people thinking of new technologies, especially IoT, not as the behemoth, like this super master big thing that you really need to put into slices, but really start with one of these slices and learn, and then move forward. The only thing that you must not do is stand still, because that will eventually lead to others passing by and being much more successful. And we saw that never as clear as in this crisis, that companies who already started with their own digital transformation, they had been so much more resilient than their competitors. And I think Corona is another big accelerator of this trend. So whatever you do, move. This would be my advice.
Okay, that's a powerful message. Go, Max, go ahead.
It's ironic that in many ways we know what we have to do. It's not rocket science, and most organizations know what they have to do. And there's a famous saying that crises don't rewrite history, they don't change history, they just accelerate it, right? So the things that we had to do in order to be successful, we knew they were just difficult to do, right? There's organizational resistance. There is all sorts of, things that are required. But things that you need to do is, I think what everybody's saying, you need to become more variabilized. You need to become more agile, more adaptable, right? You have to change to better adopt to change. And there's a lot of technologies that have been out there for a long time, right? That we've started to adopt, but maybe not at a pace that we should have. Have existed for a while. Look at cloud, right? Look at, different product-based operating models. These are methods, these are technologies that have been out there that would help with this existing crisis if organizations adapted it sooner. So we're certainly seeing the acceleration of that adoption. I don't think, there's a whiz-bang new technology that you got to go out and buy to be successful. I think it's accelerating the trends that we've seen already.
All right. And in the meantime, before you continue, Bettina was talking about hop on. I'm talking about hop in. I'm also looking at the chat. Numbers still going up, so that's good. If people in the chat, in the meantime, if you disagree, if you agree with something, you want to ask questions, you have your own opinion, please jump in, put it in the chat, and I'll ask it for it. And if you have a question for someone in the panel directly, just let us know, and I'll ask the question to them. In the meanwhile, we'll just continue. I think that's really good advice. Peter, anything to add from your side? Or
I think it's I'm now out of Accenture, so I could say it's a digital transformation is a kind of or let's call it's another consultant buzzword. It used to be like business engineering, etc. And I think what is really important is, regardless of the words you are using, is to be really clear what you want to achieve, because you can achieve kind of improvement on the cost side, like efficiency, like productivity, or scalability, which is something very different, or you can go into the product direction, which is what Bettina was talking about, like really increasing the revenues, or you go for the combination. But I think what is really required is to be really clear why you are doing this. You're not doing digital transformation because everybody is doing digital transformation. If you are doing this because my cost of IT is high, because it's not scalable, because it's not resilient, it's something very different. If I want to create a new product, and if I talk about the new products, then as Jack was saying, I think it's important to really understand what is exactly the need of the customer or the human being that is being addressed by that product. And then there is something different how I use the technology to address that need. And there is another thing, how I'm going to use, or how I'm going to monetize this, capturing the value. So the first, you need to create value really for the customer, and really measurable value. And then you can think about how you are going to monetize this. And I think that's the biggest shift which is happening with the digital, that suddenly the customer is really in charge.
All right. Okay, so
and to build on that, Peter, it's really we see a lot of these initiatives fail, and actually the majority, especially of IoT related initiatives, fail because this why is not clear, and because people hop on these buzzwords and I need AI and I need it now because everybody's talking about AI. I'm missing out something. So a lot of decision makers seem to feel this urge to hop onto this train, but they have no real vision of where this should lead to and why they are really doing that. And we all know that innovation is defined as to be technology supporting human needs. Yeah. And if there is no human need and no customer need, first and foremost, I mean, you can do IoT, apply IoT for your internal businesses to become more efficient. That's a tick in the box. If you really want to increase revenues and increase your top line, then definitely you should look for what is the customer in need of. And these questions often are not sorted out before people want to start something, and then they lift off for some initiatives. And that's why so many of these initiatives fail, because they never have been envisioned, they never had been sustainably planned. And then on the way, you get lost in this technology story, and all of these journeys, they have a part that might be rough, because you need to eventually change the whole setup in your company, and the people do not feel that this is something that would help them, so they go into resistance, and then you have this vicious circles going down. So definitely, and that's also in all the frantic that we have in this crisis, it really needs a good pair of whatever, people coming together and saying, okay, why would we do that? What should it solve? What is it good for? And what is the next immediate step? And what is the ultimate goal? The Chinese people say, if you're in a hurry, go slow, so not you fall over your own feet. And this is definitely something that we see all around right at the moment.
Okay,
and Peter, I'm still at Accenture, so I am like contractually obligated to use buzzwords, but I try to always use weekend language, right? Because I actually hate some of these meaningless kind of, concepts. And I always ask the question why. Whenever I spend time with my clients, I'm always asking them, what are your business objectives? What are you trying to achieve? And I think you're absolutely right that for many organizations that was unclear. They were doing digital transformation because a new CIO came in from an organization where they did digital transformation. So of course we've got to do it here as well, right? So for many it was unclear. And I think COVID for many organizations provided the why. Right? For many organizations, COVID became the reason, COVID became the business objective, right? To resolve, and going through transforming your technology, making it more adaptable, more agile, more modularized, using the cloud, et cetera, became the means to in some cases, stay alive, and in some cases be successful, later on. So wholeheartedly agree with you. And I think COVID in many ways provided the why for many.
All right, I'll jump in real quick. Just to recap a bit, I heard move, change, let's go in the previous one, and now we're moving more into like what are the goals, why, the why, like Bettina said, also what Max adding on, like why you're doing it. Jack was talking about the trusting, and if I look at the chat right now from Kevin Bader, if I pronounce this right, and I think it's also an interesting one to build further on what we're saying. He's saying, I'm just going to read it out. He's saying, arguably, agility in a company often requires a culture that allows people to experiment and fail. New tech enables this, but do you see that culture change actually being a driver for technology change? Or is it new tech first and then adapt as needed? And I'm also adding something extra to that because I think it links with that. Are we doing everything in function of the technology like Kevin is saying, or are we forgetting that it's actually human first, like Bettina mentioned in the beginning? So to answer Kevin's question and my little add-on, what do you guys think?
I think Kevin is observing a very important point, and he's absolutely right. There's this thing, there's a law that's called Conway's Law. It was written by, I think Melvin Conway is his name, was an American computer science teacher. And it basically said, if you take an organization and you ask them to design a system, the structure of that system will mimic the structure of the organization that designed it. So to me, those two things go hand in hand. You cannot just change technology, and you cannot just change culture and expect, agility. You have to change both, and it has to be in concert. And what I've seen in my personal experience be successful is not these Uber initiatives that say, that come down from the CEO and that, reorganize an organization and, go in a 5-year technology transformation program, but small, agile, incremental, iterative based steps with specific business objectives to Peter's point that, take one step at a time and move technology and culture and evolve towards a more agile enterprise.
Okay, that's a good answer. I'll look at the other panel members. Is it
Yeah.
important with the culture? Are we human first? Are we forgetting humans in the tech? Is it like Kevin says, technology first in this whole change?
Well, I would agree to what Max says 100%. And it's like we all know that culture change does not come overnight. Yeah. So even if you want to buy a new technology piece, whatever that might be, and apply it, this is nothing like a download from the App Store and then you press the self-install button and then everything is solved the next day. Yeah. And your people are happy and cheering like, yoo-hoo, we have a new technology and now everything has changed. So
Why
we're not
haven't you
moving
invented
left.
it yet?
But right. So, but this is the expectation of some CEOs I'm talking to, and said, so what the heck? You know, if I ask you to pole jump, you know, you would not be able to even hold the stick the right way the first day. So how do you experience that, and how is your expectation towards your people if you don't take them on that journey? And please bear in mind, it's a journey, so it might come also with a dip in the transformational dip of revenues. So if you ask your people to behave in a different way, to come up with a new mindset. So a lot of these old big companies that we are meeting, these people have been brought up in a kind of closed mindset. I tell you what to do and you do. They're very transactional way of running a business. Now we ask them for, oh, would you please embrace this failure culture? So please experiment a lot. And then if you fail, it's okay. No, it's not okay, because these people have been told for ages that if they fail, this is a super bad thing. And so we really need to be mindful, exactly like Max said, it needs an orchestration of, there is new technologies, there are new processes, there are new business models, operating models, there are new ways of behaving and communicating also. So if you really look into what is happening out there, it requires really a holistic approach, and you need to be mindful about the time, which is not a contradiction to you must not stop. Yeah. So don't get that wrong. You should move, but maybe the first step is a good step enough. Yeah. And you do not need to jump like 100 steps and then forget all your people in the back of your car. So mindfully, but still it needs to come together. This is not either or, and it's not all about the technology. And every time we see that people set things up all around the technology, these things are pretty weak and most of them fail.
Okay. Meanwhile, I'm looking at Kevin. If you're like, this is my answer, let us know if you're getting your question answered. That's always really important, because if you're talking about consultant buzzwords, we all don't like an answer that we don't an answer to our question, so we want that. So Kevin, let us know. Thank you very much, Bettina. Jack, do you have something to add on that? Also, looking from your trust perspective, are we focusing on the tech or not on the people?
I think, I don't want to be overly cynical, but I think most organizations go through their peak of innovation in the first 20 years that they exist. And if you're a railroad, it would have been, when the locomotives arrive. If you're even a Silicon Valley company today, they're bringing out new innovations again, things like this, and it propels the company forward. I think to a large extent, it just becomes very hard after a very long period of time for a company to remain at the forefront of embracing new innovation, because processes kick in and the big machinery kicks in. Smaller companies and newer companies will take more risks because they can. And therefore they do, and a lot of them fail, and many of them grow. I think the big advantages, of course, if you're in the services business, like Max and I are, and Peter used to be, you're constantly rotating your workforce. The average age in Accenture, I believe, is 31. Yeah. So when this whole digital thing started 7 or 8 years ago, we've refreshed a very large part of the company. Just as a final observation, I think it's not just the product side of life. A lot of it is down to the experience that people are bringing with innovation. And if you look at many of the biggest companies in the world, actually, especially in Silicon Valley, they are much more around how they've changed how you experience things. Amazon makes it really easy to do retail, right? You wouldn't say their analytics engine is the best in the world. They've certainly recommended many times to me to buy something they already sold me. But the experience of how they do it encourages me to buy from them, and I buy almost everything from them. I think it's a wonderful thing that they've done. The experience side of it is impacting young people a lot. My kids have all got these. They're all online all the time. They're experiencing technology in a different way. And the experiences that they get in day-to-day life are affecting what they expect also in the workplace. And that means it's going to become a real war for talent, and we know who the winners are going to be.
Nice, good observation. And by the way, Kevin says he has his answer. So good job, team. There you go. Wanted to add on that. Martin also questioned Peter, are you using business technology? Like, this is also important. By the way, Bettina, I think you have like a disturbance in the force because your astronauts in the background are flickering and there's a lot going on. Just letting you know. You might have arrived at the station. Just checking the question. And if I look down and up, and also for the people watching, is because I'm looking at the chat and I'm looking at what the organization is telling me. So it's not that I ask Jack a question and I'm like, okay, I don't care anymore. That's not the question. Just that we got all comfortable. Enjoy the film. You also see the chat, by the way. Is everybody seeing the chat on the Hop-In platform? If not, I'll read the question. If you do, you can read it because it's pretty long. I see people nodding no. So what we got? Like in an old company, waterfall mid-management. Okay, I'm just going to read this, and whoever understands can answer. Okay. It's from Martin. Like in an old company, waterfall mid-management wanted agile development. But mid-managers stayed in waterfall way of working, but developers already moved to agile, not managers, close-minded in their work. You see Bettina nodding. I have no clue what I just read.
Yeah. So it's like the way you work. Yeah. There's this waterfall model where you do like one thing after the other, and you only find out at the end whether that really would work or not. Where agile is, you really do short sprints. You shout out something, you bring something onto the market that is half ready, but you get instant feedback from the customer. And so you can develop something way faster because also you can parallelize a lot of things. So what is meant is that while the R&D guys, they, because of the Agile Manifesto, which has been written, I think, like more than 20 years ago, they moved more and more into this Agile development service. The story is, though, that their managers stayed in this, no, you need to do one thing at the other. And so you get real friction inside your business. Yeah. So while you should move the whole company actually to a little more agile, and you cannot apply agile everywhere. Yeah. So you should not apply agile in the banking sector, for example. Yeah. That could go tremendously wrong, or in BA. But it's the friction of how you run a company and what is needed in order to develop new stuff. That is a friction in itself. So if the managers do not think agile and run their teams agile, yeah, so the R&D people can always come back and say, I have new ideas, blah, blah, blah. If the managers are this kind of clay level in between where nothing is ever going through, this is going to fail. So we see that in big companies. We also have that in Siemens still at some areas, where we need to educate our managers to let them try, let them fail, let they make their decisions on a different area, and let them come up with new suggestions, and don't tick the boxes. Okay, they did that. It's a different mindset that is needed also in how you run a company.
All right. Okay. So also, Martin, for you. Yeah, go ahead, Peter. Go.
I think if I may, it's like link also is the culture question. And agile is not the answer for everything. Like I think Jack mentioned Amazon. If you look at the Amazon, like definitely agile is great for IT. It's great for product innovation. It's great for new products creation. But probably like to run agile in the warehouses will be not really the best stuff. So I think it's something which is like armies are existing for centuries, and that's the reason where they have kind of infantry, which is really well organized, hardworking, but at the same time they have very agile special forces. So I think it depends very much on the company, which kind of life cycle they are in, which degree of innovation is really required, and the culture must be really unique to the company. You cannot just like ask the old fashion companies, you go just agile because Netflix is agile. And it's just really important to look what we are using. Same stuff as we discussed before, what we use technology for, like what we want to address with the agile. Because if we want to address the innovation lifecycle with the agile, then it's probably not the answer. Agile is part of the answer, but it's not the final answer. I think we love to take like kind of universal pill for everything.
All right, Jack, I see you nodding.
Yeah, I'm just agreeing with what Peter said. I mean, Agile's great if you want to quickly, if you know roughly what you want, Agile will get you there quicker. If you know precisely what you want, Waterfall is spot on. I mean, you won't get it cheaper, but Agile allows you to experiment a bit, as Bettina was saying, and it might lead to a much better product. But you're never going to manufacture a car in an Agile manner. You're always going to have your big robust processes, but you may develop the prototypes in an Agile manner.
All right. Last one.
I just want to reinforce that real quick, because I spend a lot of my time helping organizations and helping my clients become more agile. But I want to be very, very clear, right? You cannot do everything with agile. I wholeheartedly agree with Jack and Peter and Bettina, what you guys said. You can't build a bridge using agile methodology. It's going to fall, right? Or it's not going to reach the other side of the river or whatever, right? There's things that are not right to do with agile. And every organization is going to have a mix. They're going to have some things running at agile speed, some things running, more waterfall methods. And they're going to have to manage and live with that. And there's ways to do it.
All right, cool. Martin, let us know if you had your answer to your waterfall question. Thank you for that. Last one, and I'll move to a different topic. I want to talk because we talked about where this is going, what our company's doing. They're moving digital first. What should people in tech and in business strategy do? Bettina said, move. Jack said, you have to look at your current product and you don't have to invent everything new, just reinvent. See, like the cruise ship example, social distancing is probably there. Just rethink it. And like Max said, it doesn't have to be all big there. And we had Peter saying with the digital transformation, it's buzzword, don't panic. Just look at your business and double down on the stories. The last thing I want to add on this before we move to the trends and what you're seeing is, and this is a personal one, and you can say, Marnik, you have no clue what you're talking about. That's fair enough. But this is because in our line of work, and this is not to advertise our work, but in our line of work, we come in a lot of companies, and the number one question is, and they have no clue what agile waterfall is. Number one question we get right now is, we're moving fast in tech. The developers and all the people that are technology skilled are doing a lot of stuff. The company is moving, we're double down. But the majority of employees, and this is the number one question we are getting, and maybe it's also linked to the trust part that Jack said in the beginning, is not following. They're like, this is going way too fast. We do not understand. Do we need this? What the hell is going on? And you see this split in groups, like the people developing it, the leaders paying for it and wanting it, and then the rest of the employees having no clue what is going on. How, as a person in tech developing it, and also the leaders with the visions that are looking right now, how do you deal with that? How do you get everybody on board and joining in, if I make myself clear? Definitely in the big companies. I see Bettina looking like, am I going to answer?
It's like, guys, what's up with you? Yeah, so definitely it is, I would say you have to think of this typical change curve that has a delay between the guys that make the decision, that are further along the track, and then the other guys that need to follow. So you need to understand that you already went through this process of, oh, we need to change, oh, we need to do something different. And then, not accept that, or you should not think that your people have the same set of knowledge like you have. So it's all about the communication of the vision and the why. Why are we going to change something? What are we going to do? And to really envision the future that gives your people a good idea of, oh, why should I jump? Because more or less, this should be also, or this is going to be a jump of, or a leap of faith. Yeah. So you're jumping into new future, even if you're gradually moving into that one. So this is really crucial, the communication about the why, the vision, and what needs to be done, and how everybody can contribute to this change, and why this also is a necessary step to do. Yeah. So people also talk about this boiling platform. Sometimes it's not a boiling platform because you best change out of a position of strength. Yeah. But that only rarely done that companies see. So, oh, maybe in 10 years we have a problem, so we need to change now, like SAP did. Yeah. So when they said, okay, we should move into the software thing and services thing a little bit more. So at that point, I think it's really crucial to communicate, to have a clear vision, to know what the why is, and how you bring your people onto this journey, making them a part of this journey, and not like thinking, again, yeah, I'm downloading something from an app store and press self-install. Definitely it's not working like that one.
If I may, it's just I fully agree with what just Bettina said, and I will use a real example now with the COVID, because we need to design really for the people, not just like we cannot deploy technology to people, and that was kind of testing one of the essential stuff with COVID. You need to do it very quickly. You need to get results very, very quickly. So obvious solution, if you are kind of a tech guy and developer, let's develop app. Every doctor will download it. Everybody will be just using it. We will have all the information. Yeah, that's standard. Like, yes, done, like extremely agile. And then you just see the adoption rate is really, really slow. Mm-hmm. And then you realize that the, let's say, general practitioners' average age is like over 60 or close to 60. And then you start to talk with those guys, and they're saying, okay, we are not really using apps. We simply don't use technology. I have like my nurse, and she's using technology, but she's using computer. She never used apps, and it's too complicated. I'm still using typewriter for me, or I could do scribbling as every surgeon is doing, or doctor is doing. And then you realize that, okay, if I want to really deploy this technology, I probably need to build a call center. I need to process like number of different papers. So I need to think very, very differently. So I think it's always important to, as I already mentioned, like address the needs, address the people who are going to use the technology, and then start to develop. So spend more time really on usability.
Yeah, I think that's a really
not just experience.
Those are really good answers. Like focus on the people that are using it, what are they struggling at, jump into their world and start developing from that part. Yeah. All right, cool. So I think this will also answer the question of Martin Jurko. By the way, Martin, I'm gonna try. Blasco said, thank you, I have my answers. So again, points for the team. Martin also asked a question about the technology transformations also within government, but I think this is also going to answer that question. Is we talked about, are business companies moving? Is the digital transformation real, or is it just boardroom marketing? You all said yes, people are moving. Some are forced, some are preparing, doubling down, some are actually wanting to move forward. Then we talked about, how do we move forward? Got to build that trust, put the human at the center, know your why. Like Peter just said, develop a function of the people that are actually using it and not just making something up and just delivering it. So you can, like Bettina said, download it in the App Store if it's that simple. And look, like Jack said, at your current products, what can you change? Same with me, for example. I'm used to standing on stage. That's my whole business. And I had to relook, like, how can I work with remote? So I also had to reinvent my service. So I totally agree with Jack. We discussed all that. And now, because it's post-COVID trends, if we're doing that, what are you getting, guys and lady, excited about? What is the tech in business, in government, in society right now that you are getting excited about? I know you said, Max, that we don't have to reinvent and make new technology because of what is happening. But what is exciting you? And if it already exists, what are the things that are going to have their big break? What is going to be big, not just short term, long term? What should we look out for in business, in government? You just decide. That much, huh? Nice.
I just want to start everything. So for me, to break the ice, for me, because I'm working in this field, and maybe I'm a little bit, colorblind on that one. For me, definitely it is industrial IoT, because that's a huge lever of so many things in regards to keeping people safe, reducing resources consumption, reducing CO2 emissions, like a lot of things that IoT can do. And it has been there for a quite long time, actually. And as said, COVID-19 was a real accelerator to look into how can that help to keep people safe, to have my remote operations up and running. And I think what comes in more and more, we see that in literally every use case we install right now, more or less, is AI. So it's this AIoT, which is IoT on steroids, more or less, that this advanced IoT that really is a game changer, because it is able to scale up things really in a very nice manner, and serving predictions that we didn't have before based on big data. So that is something that I'm very thrilled about.
Okay, industrial IoT. Gentlemen.
I'm actually not excited by technology.
Okay.
But
you
by
can leave
the
the panel
way,
now.
how the technology will get regulated. Because what we see is like with the COVID-19, we see a lot of discussions around data privacy. What we see like all the kind of Cambridge Analytica already before. So I think all this sophisticated marketing, but probably we have seen the first time in the history probably that two companies like work against all the governments. And this was Apple and Google with Bluetooth tracking. Because every country was trying to struggle like how we are going to do all the tracking, etc. And those two companies just said, okay, this is how we are going to do it. Because we want to protect the privacy of the people. And because those two companies actually manage effectively the whole ecosystem of the mobile phones, like every government, at least in Europe, was like supposed to adapt to the protocols those two companies decided. And you have to really go private because nothing else is being supported. So I think what is going to open is this kind of new battle, which is like governments versus corporations and data privacy at the same time.
Okay, so
to me, it's a little bit of a mixed feeling. I am excited about the flexibility technology is going to sort of accelerate, right? So for people to be more flexible, I mean, a year ago, I had to spend 20 hours on a plane and, sit in a bunch of hotel rooms, right, to speak to this group. And now I can do it, from my living room, and in an hour, I can be doing something totally different. So that flexibility is great. At the same time, I am nervous about us stepping back from spending face time with one another, because I think people, we thrive off of physical engagement. We thrive off of face-to-face interactions. And, when you were, Marnik, introducing me, you went back to how we met last year and you saw me speak and we met in person, we shook each other's hand, right? And that makes us more comfortable with each other, right? We have that rapport built up. If you don't have that, it's very difficult to establish via technology, right? So in some ways, I'm a little bit nervous about how technology is potentially going to change that. And I think we have to find ways to engage with one another face to face in order to be successful in the future.
All right, that's good. Normally, someone would say, well, there's probably going to be a technology solution for that. All right, and also,
avatars, right?
There you go. It was probably going to go there somewhere. And I'm looking at I always say when I talk to companies, I always say about Star Wars. We talked about Star Wars with the sliding doors when they moved open. Everybody said it can't be done, and now you can't imagine a hotel without automatic doors. And then if you look at the hologram meetings, I think you probably know better than me. It's just a flick away. But like you said, is it going to replace that rapport that we had with the handshake? Who knows? I don't know. Go on, Jack.
Some things you just can't do with an avatar, or at least they're not as fun.
No, it's true. So we're still people. Human is in our DNA, I always say. So that's the thing. Okay, so we have privacy, governments, industry. We have industrial IoT. We have, are we still going to stay human? Are we going to be able to shake hands? What technology? How far will it go? Jack, what are you excited about? What are the trends? What are you looking for?
Yeah, I think the one thing that I think doesn't get enough airtime that people don't talk about enough is what are we going to do when the quantum computer finally works? And I don't think we're too far away from that, because the amount of power that's going to be unleashed by the quantum computer is above and beyond anything that people can even contemplate. If you take the highest levels of encryption today, and you encrypt something, and then you want to decrypt it, and you want to use all of the computing power on the planet today, it's going to take you more than 1 billion years. Once we've got the quantum computer, it's going to take about 2 minutes.
Okay.
And this is interesting because a lot of people think as long as they encrypt stuff, they're safe. Their secrets, it doesn't matter if somebody steals it because it's encrypted. There's a lot of stuff out there that's very interesting that sits all over the place. People have got copies of it and it's encrypted, and people don't worry about that or see that as a national threat. But when the quantum computer comes, it's going to change a lot. So suddenly there'll be a lot of transparency on things that were cloaked in the past. There are also huge applications that will be possible to be developed that will massively advance things like, well, we're dealing with a virus pandemic at the moment, right? I mean, if you think about healthcare and everything that you have to do, all the number crunching that goes around creating new chemical formulas for treatments and so on, all of this gets sped up massively. And that's before you start to think about all of the other things that you can be doing with a massively powerful quantum computer that will accelerate things like autonomous driving and so on. I take it the quantum computer, marry it up with 5G, you've got suddenly capabilities that you didn't have before. And I don't even know if we are smart enough to figure out how to use all that power. We will at some point get to this moment of singularity where the computers are more intelligent than we are. And that's when things will really start to accelerate. And it's not that far away. So I think everybody should take the time to just observe what's happening with the quantum computer, because it's going to change everything. And suddenly it's going to work one day.
All right, now you scared me. I'm going to first delete my browser history first before I continue this panel. and now I'm thinking about the matrix. And by the way, we also have a question on, so we have the quantum computer. Okay, I think this is a bit regulation, quantum secrets coming out. I'll just read it for you. Whoever feels they can answer it, go ahead. It's from another Martin. He says, when you mention tech regulation, how do you see decentralized cryptocurrency? As you might know, 22% of all US dollars was printed this year, which is economically unsustainable. Is the question clear? Let's is it answerable? Because you can also say, like, we don't have an answer for that.
I don't have the answer for that.
Okay, that's also possible. If we had all the answers, we would probably be rich somewhere and sitting on a yacht.
Well, I do have opinion, but I don't have the answer.
Okay. Any of the other panelists? Not really. Martin, we don't have the answer. If you have, in the coming days, the answers, feel free to share, but thank you very much for the question. I definitely don't have the answer, but thank you for asking. I'm looking at the time, ladies and gentlemen. We have 5:25:30. There's also a poll up somewhere. Let me check real quick. There you go. All right, nice. So in the meantime, there's a poll up where you can answer the questions going on if you want to do that. In the meantime, we're almost out of time. For now, already thank you for the great answers and the answers we didn't have. And I want to end this with, it might sound a bit like this is the ending question you probably always ask, but I think it's a really important one. You're pretty experienced with Open Slava. Some might have watched it throughout the years. Some already have spoken at Open Slava, so you know the audience a bit. And like we said, with a mix of people that are thinking about the future, vision, technology, there are also people who are really into the tech, making everything possible that we are mentioning here, jumping into the code, things like that. From your perspective, from your business, from your background, if we have to close this panel and you're looking at the audience that is watching right now, what would be your, and we're going to sound like parents, but what would be your number one advice? And you could say, my advice for tech is develop in a certain way, or my advice is for business leaders to do it in this way. What would you say, and how they can cope with the current times, cope with technology, and be ready for the near and the far future? What would be that one thing?
So maybe I'll go first. You know, I'm a geek, right? I grew up as an engineer, as an architect, you know, back in my education days, and, you know, even in Accenture, and even today, I still spend my weekends tinkering around with technology. And so, you know, what I would say is that there has never been, in my professional career of more than 20 years, there has never been a more exciting time to be in technology. How technology is shaping what organizations are doing, how it's at the forefront of business, every business, not just the technology business. When I finished, you know, my school, when I graduated, I went to work for Accenture because Accenture was a technology company, you know, and you didn't have that many choices. You could have gone to work for Microsoft. You could have gone to work for a handful of companies that were making technology, but majority of companies were not, right? And today, every single company is. So technologists went from sitting in the back office, you know, enabling the business, to being the business. And so there's never been a more excited time. And my advice, to answer your question, to young people, right, to people who are graduating, even to people that are working today, is be curious, right? Be curious about technology, explore it, tinker around with it, understand it, learn it. And that curiosity will help you be successful and will help you find your passions, right? And there's never been a more exciting time to be in technology and to explore it. So that's my advice.
Nice. That's a good answer. That's movie material we're hearing right now. Very cool. Nice. Bettina, look at you, or Jack.
Yeah, I mean, if I think back to when I started work, I started work 35 years ago. And if you looked at what technology could do for you then, it was pretty primitive. It was pretty basic. Problems were defined, you would just look at things and say, this is a difficult thing for a human to do, like adding up numbers or something. You'd get the computer to do it, payroll systems, things like this. The shoe's on the other foot now. If you look at the amount of processing power, storage capacity, what the cloud offers, it's immense, and it doesn't cost very, very much. To get that accessibility, there's a lot of open source software. You don't need to build everything yourself. You can spin it up in the cloud and just pay by the drink. My advice to anybody would be really take a step back and think about your business and think about what would you want to change, or what would be the big idea or the big opportunity you want to seize, because the technology's there and it can do it. And I think people just sometimes don't have the time to really think about how to transform the business, but it can be done, and it can be done relatively low cost. And if you look at a lot of the companies that have sprung up over the last 20 years that have really transformed things, if I think when I started work, the compact disc player was a new thing. This was a way to sell a better quality of music more expensively, and it killed the music industry over the last 35 years. Look at music today. A lot of these companies that were, big record companies have been massively disrupted by what Spotify and Amazon and others have done. So if you start to think big, you can achieve it now, because the cost and the accessibility has never been better than it is today. So that would be my advice. Stop for a moment and really think. The implementation will be easier than you think.
All right. So we have be curious. Best time to be alive in tech. Think about it. Take a moment. Don't be too fast. See how you can rethink things. Things big, because the possibility is there. That's what I heard so far. All right. Cool. Nice, Peter. Bettina?
Well, I would quote the uncle of Spider-Man, like saying, with great power comes great responsibility. So for everybody in tech, as we said, it should be people-centric, yeah? So it's not about technology, it's all about the people. And what we must not forget is that, before quantum computing will hit us, the environmental crisis will hit us, and our world is literally falling apart. So my advice would be, to your best ability, start producing, thinking, searching for something that helps us to get this crisis under control. And Corona crisis, in regards to the environmental crisis, is nothing. So I would really encourage and fire up people to think about how could technology solve human problems, and the environmental crisis is one of the problems we designed ourselves. Yeah, so we are responsible for that. And if whatever you do something that serves society with technology and serves the environment for the better.
Okay, nice. So actually we're saying, be curious, be happy to be alive, but you're probably not going to be alive for long, because a storm is coming and the flood is coming. But Jack says, take your time, don't panic. The sea is coming, but don't panic. Just take a look at the technology. Think big, because the power is there. And then Peter adds.
I was just, listening to everybody. I think everything was said. I was just thinking about my son. He's 11, and he has a very strange hobby. He's collecting, he called it vintage computers.
Okay.
And he's asked me recently a question like that. What was it when you were working with this old Windows 98? And now I was just like, because there is Windows 10 and there is what is the difference? What was really the big thing we changed? And I think then the answer to I think we need to understand what we use technology for, and really what is really moving the needle. When I'm deploying technology, when I'm using it should move the needle. I should not just use it for because I use technology. But if I'm really used, like I want to move the needle, and it could be in the company, it could be for human beings, it could be for the society, then it's really use.
All right, nice add-on. Does he have your computer in his vintage collection?
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. That's what I thought. So it's already in
But
the
you
museum.
cannot do it. It's binary.
Oh, okay. I have no clue what that means, but I think it's great. Thank you very much. We're at the end of our time. I'm looking at the crew. There you go. I'm looking at the chat right now. Oh, they're answering Martin's questions. They're great people jumping in. All right, nice. I think I heard a lot of stuff. I'm not going to wrap it up again, but I think I heard great stuff. And to end with Peter, move the needle for society, for your business, for yourself, human focused, and the technology is there. That's what I'm hearing. The technology is there. It's going to be even bigger. So no excuses there. Just look and function of why am I developing, and is it making a difference, and is it a good time to be alive? So I think that's. So I want to thank you all, Jack, Peter, Bettina. Bettina, I'm going to see you back in a half an hour to an hour for the next presentation of the Siemens story. So if you want to hear her rock the digital stage with her friend that she's bringing from Germany and tell her this Siemens, stick around, check her out. Max, also thanks. So good to see you again. Digital handshake. Here we go. Building up some rapport. Thank you very much. Enjoy your day or evening or wherever you are in the world. Thank you. And people in the chat, if you want to connect with them, look for them online, LinkedIn, and ask them questions if you want. Thank you very much, guys. And ladies.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Cheers.